We took a noise power supply, ground it, spliced it. Still, the mommy maker demanded silence. So now, we have no choice. It's time to drop the buck. Good morning, thanks for joining. Today we're going to finally silence the power supply, and this is how we're going to do it. Let's take a closer look at it. LM2596 DC-DC buck converter module, 3 to 40 volt input, 1.5 to 35 volt output, 3 amp max current, over 90% efficiency, 25 turn trim pot, thermal shutdown and current limit protection. So what the LM2596 is going to do is it's going to let us take the 24 volts from our power supply, switch it to 12 volts, and then we can run it to a 12 volt fan. And for PCs, there's many 12 volt fans and silent fans available, so it really gives us a lot more option. We have to decide whether we're going to try to mount the fan on the inside again, or if we're going to be okay with mounting the fan on the outside. If we mount the fan on the inside, we have a maximum space available inside here for a 70 millimeter fan. If we try to put a 25 millimeter fan on the inside, it's going to make contact here with this transformer. There's one more thing that is maybe possible, and it's running the stock fan at a lower voltage, a lot lower compared to a resistor. I want to try to test and see what it sounds like if we drop the voltage down a lot. So if we decide to go with putting the fan on the outside, then we have options to go from about 80 millimeters up to 92 millimeters. It's possible, if you can find a 100 millimeter fan, to put it on here also, but 120 millimeter fan will definitely go over the edge. I have some Kapton tape here. Okay, so I'm pretty tired right now. I just found out that I lost an entire memory card of data. So I'll just go over quickly what I did. And what I did, honestly, is already in the first fan modification video. So if you want to see specifically how to do it, please take a look at the first video. I took a fan, put the fan on the back, and then I traced the inside of the fan like this. Then I took a nail. I was able to make a marking of where I want to put the screw holes. Then I took the amazing, I don't know if I want to say amazing yet, I've only used it twice, the Dremel 4000, and I cut out the shape. I used a sanding disc. Last time I used a grinding wheel was very good for cleaning up the edges. I drilled holes for the fan. Here's the 80 millimeter fan, and we can see we got a little bit of space, and I'm going to use that for mounting the buck converter. And if we put a 90 millimeter fan, it takes up almost all the space, so we have to find a new place to mount the converter. If we try to mount it center, the hole from the original fan is going to show. And then also I showed a slim, that's not a slim, that's the original fan, slim 70 millimeter fan. It fits really, really perfectly. We need to be careful of these capacitors here, the tab for putting the cover back on, and we need to be careful for these components attached to the heatsink up here. We've got a very, very small amount of clearance there. I also drilled one extra hole. Where is it? This one. I drilled one extra hole, and I'm going to feed the wire through, and that's basically where I left off. Yeah, let's hope that that doesn't happen again. It's probably going to happen again. So for me to be able to feed this through the hole I made, I'm going to have to take the connector off. Okay. I'm going to feed that inside. My reason for doing this is there's more space for me to hide the wires inside the power supply somewhere off to the side. Okay, so that's inside now then. And you should be able to hear it snap into place. If you don't hear it snap into place, maybe you didn't lift the pins up high enough. So I have the buck converter, and what we want to do is we need to wire 24 volts from the power supply to the in. And we need a wire going to the out, which will be for our fan. What I want to do is I want to use these little posts and install the posts, and that'll give me a little bit more space to work with and put the wire nicer in. So to do this, I'm just going to put a post inside the hole. It's going to be hot, but I'm going to do it anyways. And just touch the post a little bit and bring it up to the solder. Okay, now it's on the pad. Good. There, and then we got a little bit extra. So I'll just do all of these now. So for the wire, I want to cut a little bit longer than the length of the power supply case. Put some solder on it. And then I'm going red for plus, black for minus. As long as you're following a color code, it makes life a lot easier and safer. I'm going to tin the posts a little bit. Take the wire and put a piece of shrink tube on it. Get some fresh solder here. This one is okay. You can put the tube down now. Okay, then we do the minus side. Go and do the opposite side. I have a video on soldering. It's just a small guide. If you want some extra help, you can check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. Okay, so now we are wired and we're ready to move on to the next step. We need to make a decision and decide where we want to get our power from. So first choice is we get the power from the original fan connector. And if we get power from the original fan connector, it's simple. The downside is that I don't know how much power the trace for this fan connector can draw. So depending on the size of the line going through the circuit board, there's a maximum amount of power that we can draw. So running one fan is no problem, but if we try to run the full 3 amps of the buck converter, I don't know how this power supply will handle it. So in that case, it's a little bit better idea to take one of these open terminals, a plus and a minus, then we can easily get the full 3 amps without having to worry about it. I'm going to use the original fan connector. I'm going to only use this buck converter for the power supply fan. I have here connector head, and under here supporting the power supply I have some connector pins, so I'll get this ready now. This is not going to be the easiest thing without the proper tools, but it's still possible. I'm going to put a little bit of solder on here. And the idea is that we need to wrap the big feet around the insulation and wrap the tiny feet around the wire, but we should not have it so long that it goes past those tiny feet. Having the correct crimpers for this job is really much easier. It's holding tightly. So then what we need to do is we need to get the small legs closed around the wire. Yeah, okay, that looks good. So I'll do the other one now. I'm going to put the connector part on the same as the original. Hopefully this is going to fit in the original position. Yes. So at this point, we're ready to... Okay, so magically, the modification is done, and I'm having a chocolate break. And this chocolate is very interesting. It tastes like fake butter theater popcorn. And this chocolate is just chocolate. Yeah, so I lost my footage again. It's the problem of my camera being almost 10 years old. It's finished and it's running, and I think maybe you cannot hear anything right now. Maybe you can hear my refrigerator, because my refrigerator is the loudest thing in the room at the moment. We mounted the fan. I mounted the fan. This profile, this cut, really needs to be done well. There was a lot of additional fan noise that was not necessary, and it was all coming from my bad cuts, making a turbulence. So I took the Dremel and cleaned it all up, and also tried my best to round down the edges. For me, I could hear an audible difference after I did that. The second part is that, well, the buck converter is installed now, and that was a pretty big part. So I have the buck converter installed here in this special case that I made, and I have an old copy here. So this case I printed and designed, and what it allows me to do is just put the buck converter inside with no screws and nothing, just pops inside. There's some tabs in there to hold it in place. Then this piece will clip onto the side of the fan. I will try to upload that somewhere. Okay. So when we have the buck converter wired, then what we need to do is we need to tune it to the voltage that we want. It's plugged into the power supply. Then we have the ins and the outs wired here. So before we connect it to the fan, before connecting it to the fan, we turn the power supply on and we check the output voltage. And if it's too high, we need to turn it down to 12 volts. And I said I was going to test the original fan, and I did test the original fan, and that footage is gone. But what I did notice is that even if you use the original 24 volt fan and you take it down all the way to 12 volts, it's still pretty loud. I don't recommend trying to use the original fan. But of course, if you wanted to. So we get it tuned, and then it's good, and then we can connect our fan. What I did is I had a connector that I pulled off of an old motherboard. I could wire it to my output wires. Then I could just connect the fan. Here I have the fan connection. It's installed in this heat shrink. And heat shrink, I'm using it to protect the wires from any possible temperature inside the power supply. I'm using the original fan, 24 volts. I noticed that it was really quiet running at 12 volts, but it was not silent. After cleaning the profile, it became better, but I really wanted this to be nearly silent. It's still running now. I should be careful here, but it's still running now. I did an undervolt, so now it's running at, let me check one more time. Now it's running at 6.65 volts. So I've got it undervolted quite a bit, but I still have a very high amount of airflow coming off here. So I'm fairly satisfied myself that it will be okay. You might not want to go so low, you might want to go lower. The fan I used is a BeQuiet Pure Wings 2 80mm fan. So I'll link to as many different things as I can in the description. It's kind of interesting to print a fan grill for this one, maybe. I might do it in the future. It's very easy to attach this. Just put this on the right way. It's strong enough. I mean, I've taken it apart a few times already off camera, so it doesn't break, so snaps in. And then the top part here, I don't have my other light on, that's why it's so dark. So the top part goes on the fan first, and it just sits on the corner of the fan. Then you can just, and you can take it off easily again. It's not difficult to take it off, but it also doesn't fall off on its own. And it's got a contour here to match the fan, so design-wise, I think I did a reasonable job making it cool. I hope so, at least. And the backside is not contoured, so there's some airflow for the buck converter. Overall, I like it. It's got like an industrial kind of mech design going on, and that's what I enjoy. I don't have a mount base to tie this down, so at the moment I'm doing it like this, and then I'm going to go and get the mount base later. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If there's any questions, I'll answer as many questions as possible. Just leave a comment. I'm going to hopefully close this power supply for the last time. So if we took this fan off and just had it in the open air, it's actually a lot quieter compared to putting it on the case. When we put it on the case, then really the acoustics of the case itself are what makes the majority of the noise that we hear. On a PC, if we put this inside a larger PC case, then you don't hear it. But that's why I undervolted it. We could try making a little bit of a larger grill, and maybe the added intake will be good, but there's not so much that we can do to make it perfectly silent. You can try a different brand. BeQuiet is already pretty quiet in my opinion. You could use a larger fan. You can go to the 92, and then with the 92 you get the additional airflow, and then if you undervolt it at that point, it's a little bit better. And now the refrigerator is off, so I don't know, can you hear that? I can hear my TV. I can hear a motorcycle. I can hear an airplane, but I don't really hear this fan, so I'm really satisfied at the moment. And I can bring it up higher voltage. It's quiet, but I wanted to go for silent. I wanted to go to the point where I can have my printer running and be making a video, and it's not going to interrupt. Maybe that's my final goal. So we'll try to aim for that. So here we are. It's still running and it's still quiet. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you got something out of it, please push the like button and subscribe. It would help out a lot. There's going to be some links in the description. If you use those links to purchase anything, it also helps out the channel a lot. Let me know if there's something that you're interested in doing or you're interested in seeing, and I'll try to make some videos based on what everybody is interested in seeing also. Sorry about the mess with the video footage this time. I'll try to not have the same thing happen again, but it's probably going to happen again. So thanks a lot and see you next time.
I suppose this silence shall suffice.